Hi guys and welcome back to Dice Down Gaming. Today is a bit of an unscripted and unplanned video. I want to give my thoughts and feelings about the Warmachine update regarding Command Cadres and Command Starters. Before that though, it's giveaway time. I said once I reach 250 subscribers, I've got a giveaway planned. I managed to reach and exceed that, so thank you so much everyone who showed me any support. The giveaway is for some Warmag 32mm premium magnets. All you have to do, you have to be subscribed to my channel, drop a comment in this video. If you've done both of those things, I'll randomly assign the comment to number, and I'll use a random number generator to randomly select the winner. I'll give that about a week. Once that's done, I'll announce a winner. Thank you so much for your support so far. My next target is 500. Let's see if I can achieve that. With that out of the way, my thoughts on a Warmachine update, Command Cadres and Command Starters. There's a bit of speech here about Steam 4s want to both manage the game as it is and manage the game for the future. Obviously, Steam 4's game bought the game from Privateer Press, and there was a few things in place from Privateer Press that they're trying to manage. A bit of TLDR about how a faction and army works at the moment. You have a faction, such as Signar, and then you have army lists for that faction, such as Gravediggers or Storm Legion. In Cador's case, you have Cador Winter Corps and you have Cador Old Ombre. Command card raised piece previously until today. We were all under the impression that a command cadre would be used for both factions, such as Phil Cole's command cadre, eligible for Old Ombre army list and eligible for Winter Corps army list. Another example would be the Shadows and Scum box come with two command cadres, such as Foulblood's Armada. Previously, that would have been able to use for Bribe Marauders, and the intention was that it would be able to use for the Kith Guard, both Southern Creel's faction, two army lists in that faction. The change they've announced today is that not all command cadres will now be eligible to be used for both factions, and they're going to be renamed into command starters. So the Cador Annihilators command cadre, the Dust of Ghosts of Ios command cadre, Orgoth Curse-bound command cadre, Southern Creel's Foulblood's Armada command cadre, and the Chimera Shah Doctrine command cadre are now going to be renamed as command starters. These boxes aren't going to be eligible to be played for the other army list in the faction, whereas things like Signar Stormforge cadre, that is still going to be able to use between the Gravediggers and the Storm Legion. That's pretty much the update they put out. What are my feelings about this? So first of all, I suppose the immediate sort of downside for people is that some people may have already purchased Foulblood's Armada with the intention of playing that for the Kithguard army, which we know is coming after Old Umbre. People also might have previously bought the Cador Annihilator Commander, assuming that they'll be able to use that for their Old Umbre army, which is currently sort of on the verge of being released. That's being released. So immediately, that's the downside. I think whenever they put this announcement out, if it was always going to happen, that was always going to be the con of it. People may have bought some models which they now no longer are going to be able to use for their planned faction. That is a con. I would say the flip side of this is that whenever they did this announcement, if it was always planned, that was always going to be a bit of a bummer for anyone who's done that. But the earlier they did this, the better. I think currently Old Umbre is up for pre-order, or you can pre-order it, or we're sort of in the middle of the Old Umbre release, and it would be even more disingenuous to let you sort of fully release Old Umbre and then say, by the way, you can no longer use your Cador Annihilator cadre with your Old Umbre army now. So I think they've done it at a good time. I think whenever they did it, wasn't going to be a good time because ultimately it's bad news for people that wanted to use, for example, Foul Blood in Kithguard. But doing it now to give sort of transparency and clarity, and do it as early as they can in terms of Old Umbre release, I can understand. So I think first of all, there is a downside to it that there's no longer be as much diversity. For example, Flower World you can't use in Kithguard. And the leader model from the Cador Annihilator crew no longer be able to use in Old Umbre. I'd say, are there pros to it? Absolutely. First of all, I think for design space and trying to design a leader model and or these boxes, it must be very hard to design a leader model thinking, well, what will this be used to across two factions? And even in the known instance, for example, with currently Old Umbre, they know the design and the models, and they know Cadre's design and models. Planning field goal for example, both of them must be very challenging. But in the case of, for example, Orgoth, the Cursebound Cadre, when they're designing the second Orgoth army, they're going to have to design almost around Auriax because they know that Auriax could have been used in that army. So I think it opens a lot of design space in terms of how they design these boxes and what goes in the boxes. Also, I would say things like Auriax or Foul Blood, maybe it opens a bit of design space for them as it is, because now they're not going to have to worry about them going across another army. So maybe we can see some redesign or a bit more, giving a bit more identity to those warlocks which are going to be able to cross armies, but which no longer can. Another pro I think is the being transparent and being clear. This is a hard decision, and obviously some people will be negatively affected by it. But I think they've done it pretty early on into their lifespan. As I said, they bought the game from Privateer Press, and it was Privateer's Press intentions that these command cadres would also be able to bounce between the two. But sort of Steam Forward's games comment here that in practice the cadres were designed to match the army which was already available, but as the second armies haven't been developed, plans hadn't been made for how these cadres would work in the second army. I can imagine that trying to design a box that would work for an army which you've not yet made must really sort of limit how you design that box and what you put in it, because you're almost trying to second guess how the aesthetic of the box you're making will fit into the aesthetic of an army you've not yet designed. That must be very hard. And mechanically, you must feel some sort of restraint because, I can't make this one leader too wild because what if in the army that is going to be put in the second army, which it could be played in, which we've not yet released or designed, what if that makes that too hard to fit into that army? So I think in terms of, in that, it's a massive pro. I think it's a massive pro they've come out and sort of been very clear in their communication. They've said this is a hard decision. Ultimately, it's a negative for some people, but doing it early on is the best they can do, I think. That is not going to be a long video today. I just wanted to sort of sum my thoughts up. I think the TLDR is it's a bummer if you've bought a Foul Bloods Armada preparing for Kithgard, or if you bought Annihilator Cadre for your old Umbre. Ultimately, you can't use their models in the planned army. Um, Sorry for you if you've done that. That is really annoying. But I think there's big pros in terms of the design space it will allow for these warlocks that have already been made. Maybe we can get a bit more invention on them in the faction, knowing that they're only going to be assigned to their one faction. For example, Foul Blood and Brian Blood. Maybe we can get a bit more inventive and a bit more sort of design space for him. But similarly, when we look at Kithgard, they're not now going to have to design Kithgard sort of against Foul Blood. So it's going to open a bit more design space for Kithgard as well. And I think another pro is that they've come out and done this very openly. It's on their website. They published an article. They posted it on their social media, and they've done it, as early, not as early as they can. You could argue, should they have done this before Gravediggers? So Gravediggers, you don't. So Signal have still get their two cadres, and I think part of that is they don't want to remove options from a live army. You could argue, well, why didn't they do this before Gravediggers? Because then no army would have access to the two command cadres. Obviously, I imagine that designing a game is very hard. There's probably a lot of leftover stuff from Privateer Press that they're trying to sort of manage and work through. So I still think it's a pro that they've come out and done it so openly, so transparently. They've admitted it's a hard decision, and they've done it pretty early on into their life cycle. Uh, there are still some command cadres, for example, the Storm Legion one that does cross Gravediggers, and sort of finish off Privateer Press. Steamforge have said, we understand that some of your purchased command cadre expect them to be playable in more than one army. As I say, it wasn't an easy decision, but it's one that will help safeguard Warmachine as an immersive game with coherent factions. So I suppose that's one of the things they're struggling with is that they comment above that the Annihilator cadre doesn't really fit into this feral, sort of more druidic, natural vibe. You've got guys in massive suits, powered suits that don't really fit to this more organic theme. We're making this change now before the release of new armies that will be affected to help avoid confusion or mismatched expectations. So again, they're trying to get this in. They're doing this before Old Umbre finishes, so you're not going to buy your Annihilator Cadre and then be surprised that you can't use it. And obviously they've got Kithguard coming up, so they're being clear that you can't use Foul Blood with Kithguard, and any future releases they're going to be clear on. Since Warmachine came under Steam Forge, we've implemented a new development roadmap that looks much further ahead. So if we make any decisions which introduce new cross-army models, those will be future-proofed with a roadmap in mind. So, when they make new boxes, they're not saying that a box will never ever be cross-faction, but they're saying that if they do that, they'll have that in mind about the cross-faction. We're grateful for your continued support and love Warmachine. Retrospective changes are never easy, but we truly believe that this will benefit Warmachine in the long term. And I do agree. I do think that, again, design space for both designing these command starter boxes, which they'll now be called, design space for the leader models and units in them, and design space for the faction that they're going to go into will be a bit more open. Now they're not constantly balancing command cadres for two armies. I hope that's sort of maybe helpful. It was really me just rambling about what I think about the change. Thanks for tuning in. I hope to see you in the next one very soon.